Welcome back, guys. It's your boy Z. This is Debating to the Moon and Back. It's been a while. I've been enjoying my vacation a little bit too long, but I am back with the one, the only, Ronnie Terry. What's going on, my dude?
What's going on, my guy? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I really can't complain. I got some new life updates. As far as being married, car, house, trying to really knock out some milestones. And
Does the
so,
audience know about that already, or are you?
I've been alluding to it, on the different channels we got and whatnot. But the reason why I brought you on today is actually to talk about, I've been checking off some milestones. But when it comes to the Black community, what are some myths that are not really a thing, but like people are like living by this? Like, what is one that you feel like you can like spot like right away?
A myth that I think the Black community, I mean, really a lot of communities, but definitely something I see that's common in the Black community is that, saving their money, letting it sit in a savings account, a checking account is a good thing. And I have a differing opinion on that. I do think that there is, a certain amount of money you should have in those accounts. You should have an emergency fund. But as far as like the bulk of your savings going into those accounts,
Okay.
personally, I don't agree with it just because of the lack of interest you're accruing on those accounts. I see it being a lot more beneficial to put money into the stock market or into, some other form of an investment that's going to bring you, more in interest. So that's a big thing for me. And maybe I should give a little bit about my background. So I don't claim to be like a finance guru or anything of that sort. But I graduated with a degree in finance. So I do have a pretty base level understanding of investing, of finance, and things of that sort. I got my degree in finance from Marquette University back in 2019. So I graduated in spring of 2019. Been knowing your boy Z for since third grade. So we pretty much grew up together. One of my longest friends for sure. And I'm happy to be on the show today. Happy to be on the podcast.
Okay. So when you talk about not really letting money just sit in a savings account. So like, I would say like for the longest time I remember my mom like telling me like make sure you save sections of your check, like like she told me like, oh, like I think she gave me like a 30, a 30 40 10 rule. Like, it was like the numbers are all over the place, where she told me like, like make sure you like have enough like for spending. That was the 30% of my check, right? And then she's like, all right, yeah, you have the 30%. She was like, you want to save 40% of it. So now we're already up to 70% of that check that's taken care of. And then she said like the other like 30 really are going to go into emergency funds, like whether it's food, whether it's transportation, and then whether it's like rainy day, right? And so that was just my mom going 30, 40, and then 30 again, just to kind of like really break up the money and kind of show me how money works. But why do you say like, again, when it comes to like that, not just like letting it sit in the bank? Why would you say that? Like, what else could that money be doing? Like, is that money working for you? Like, what is happening with that money that you're?
So let's take the scenario of like what your mom was talking about, for example. I think that's great. That's like a great intro, right, to saving money. For one, I think especially in the Black community, just saving money is a struggle for a lot of people, right? A lot of people don't have anything in their savings account, their checkings account. They get it and they spend it, right? Nothing's going towards investing. They're not building up to anything. So that's first off. I want to be careful when I say like don't have your money sit in a savings account, because we as a community need to accomplish that first. We need to be able to save money, right? We need to be able to live frugally. But my whole idea of not letting all of your money or the bulk of your money sitting into a savings account is because you're not going to earn as much from a savings account as you would from other investment vehicles, whether that be real estate, which can fluctuate for sure depending on the investment. The stock market, which generally you can expect to get at least 7 or 8% returns year over year, which is much greater than what you'd be getting in a savings account, right? So there are, I mean, I just feel like there's a better use of that money. If you don't
Okay.
need to pull it out again, as long as you have that savings fund, that emergency fund available to you at all times, that could be in a savings account, in case you do need to pull that out. But if you have the ability to put other money aside, in my opinion, you can make more money, by having it into another investment vehicle than a savings account.
All right. And so since we're sticking with finance, uh, why, like, what would you point at as the factor of why we don't save? Like, what
I
is it?
think
Like,
it
is it a system like that? We've come up like trying to like compare, and oh, I need this to like stay at like a status, as far as like prestige in life, or like, why are we not saving money?
Yeah. I can't speak for the community as a whole with that, but just judging off my experience growing up, I mean, it took me a while to get to the point where I was saving. And mostly it was because my family was so poor that any money we did have, it was going towards our bills. There really wasn't that much extra to be putting towards investments or to be putting into the savings account. We were living very frugally. It was very, check to check type of living. But once we got to the point to where we did have a little extra income coming in. We did have extra money to spare. I felt like that's where the lack of education came in, right? Because even when we had these extra funds, we looked at it as, oh, I have extra money to spend. Oh, I can go and get me a nice outfit. I can go buy these shoes that I've been wanting, right? These hooping shoes. To where, none of that like investing mindset was being prioritized. It was just like, oh, I have more money in my pockets. I can go spend more. That's what that means. Where really we should have been saving more. We should have been putting more money into investments. And these are things that I didn't have growing up. Like I didn't hear that investing was a good idea. I didn't know that a lot of people become rich from their investments. These were things that weren't taught to me, right? When I seen money in my account, when I had money on me, I seen that as a sign of, oh, I've got more money to spend. Let me go shopping. Let me go treat myself. And that's a common mindset of a lot of people I know, a lot of Black people I know. I don't know if your experience has been different, but growing up, that's how it was for me.
I mean, to piggyback, I would say similar. Obviously, because like we only probably grew up maybe 3 miles apart from each other. I would say in my experience, it was mainly that tax money, that lump sum that came back that
Hmm.
people like overindulge. And the reason why I say that is because um, when you talk about wants and needs, and then things you must do, there are things that like you must pay for that your taxes are responsible for.
Hmm.
And then there are needs that sometimes get neglected, and your wants kind of take over that tax money a little bit more.
Hmm.
So I've seen a lot of that in my life. Um, but I mean, I would also say like obviously coming up, um, the flow of money, right? Like it's like I don't know what cycle it's called, but it's like the money you make, like that cycle of like how it goes. They pay you, you go buy stuff, you put it into the store, then they could pay someone else, and then it kind of continues. Like
Hmm.
that cycle was never actually broken down, at least to me, to where it left room for saving. Like because really, when we talk about like what's the value of a dollar, like it's fluctuated. Like because again, like when we think about when we were kids, we can get 4 bags of chips for
For
a
a
dollar.
dollar. Right. Now you barely
Now
get one.
Yeah, now we can only get one, so it's like the value of a dollar has changed. So at least for me, that's why I would say I'm probably like late to the party when it comes to like learning how to save and learning like the power of my dollar.
Hmm.
Just because like I don't know necessarily if I'm using it correctly. Um, where I'm at right now, I just know I'm using it more strategical than like the next guy. Obviously, like again with all the milestones I've been trying to check off, um, I've been able to save enough for a lump, use the lump, and then start over, and like kind of
Hmm.
like keep that as a strategy to like check off these bigger things I want in life. The marriage, big lump; the new
Yeah.
car, big lump; the house, a big lump. And now I'm back at that stage where again now all those lumps are out of the way. I'm working on my savings, but like I don't necessarily know who to go to, who to talk to do it correctly. Like
Hmm.
I was actually talking to a buddy about like a Roth IRA and all the other stuff. Um, and I actually set it up, and then me and my lady were gonna do it. Um, but the amount of money that they were taking, in a sense, like it's for savings, but it's like they were taking chunks away from like the actual income that was needed that I didn't necessarily like plan for. Like I was like that money wasn't like necessarily just able to just be taken away from like what my like normal salary is and her normal salary to go towards a savings like that. So like, what are your advice or tips on something like that?
So I'm a huge fan of Roth IRAs, especially for young people. So the benefit of a Roth IRA, what that is for those who may not know, it's a okay, it's you take your money, you take your income, you are essentially taking a portion of your income and putting it into a fund. And what happens is the money that you're putting into this fund is taxed immediately. So it's taxed at the moment that you're putting it into the funds. But the beauty in that is that it's not taxed down the line once you take the money out. And so the real benefit for that is you're going to be accruing a ton of interest over time. Say you're adding, it could be something like $100 a month, right? Over the course of 40, 50 years. Well, that amount's going to equate to, I didn't do the math in my head, but let's say it brings your account to $1 million. Well, now you're not being taxed on that $1 million that's coming out. All that money, all the interest that accrued during that time period, you're able to take that out completely, opposed to more of the traditional IRA route where you're not taxed right away. So say you take $200 out of your paycheck and put it into that account. Well, the full $200 is going inside, and you're accruing interest on that money that you're putting in each time. However, you're taxed down the line once you have a bigger balance. In my opinion, for young people, it doesn't work to your advantage because you do have that window of being able to accrue interest, over 30, 40, 50 years until you decide to retire. And so it makes sense to get taxed on the small amounts now, opposed to the large amounts that you'll have in the future, 6 figures, 7 figures for a lot of people as well. So I personally love Roth IRAs. I'm not sure what your situation was. You should have the option, and maybe the person didn't explain this. You can put however much you want towards your Roth IRA each month. You don't have to set it up on a recurring basis. You can go in and say, oh, I want to put $50 in now. 2 months from now, you can go in and put $300. You know what I mean? You can kind of do that at the rate that you want to. And we can talk a little bit more about that if you need help with that too.
All right.
I personally love Roth IRAs.
Do you personally have one?
Yeah,
okay.
I have one myself. I recommend everyone to take advantage of that, especially young people. If you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s even, take advantage of a Roth IRA.
Okay. Yeah, because that was something that, again, like I was trying to dive into, but again, I didn't have, like, I wear a lot of hats. That just wasn't the hats I could wear and put on and like feel comfortable in the hat to understand enough about my finances to be like, okay, I think I'm doing it right.
Another way to think about it too, how I like to think about Roth IRAs, and this was broken down to me by one of my friends, because I didn't even put it in this sort of sense immediately, right? Right now, we might be making moderate incomes, but I'm assuming you're in the same boat. I plan to make more in 30 years. I plan to make more in 40 years. I plan to, be making a lot more money than I am now, fresh out of college. And so the beauty about getting taxed now is that we're getting taxed at a lower rate. If you think about the fact that you take on like a traditional IRA, for example, and you're taxed once you take the money out, we're likely going to be taxed at a higher, at a higher rate because we're making more money. We file under a different tax bracket. So it definitely makes sense to take the taxes now while you're, at a lower tax bracket, opposed to a larger one. There's so many benefits to the Roth IRA, in my opinion. I'm very biased when it comes to that.
Okay. And so then I want to pivot just one more time. It's still obviously dealing with money, but it's also just kind of like something I know your mom has told you, something my mom has told me, and probably what a lot of other like black and brown people have heard. Why is it that the first thing you're told coming up is that if you work harder, you'll go farther? And the way people take work harder, you'll go farther is having 2 to 3 jobs. Because for me, the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because like I've never like personally met someone who's working 2 to 3 jobs successfully. Like, I've seen a lot of hard workers do it. I've seen a lot of people like put, the whole plan in play for that. But I haven't actually seen it be successful in a way, it can carry a family. Obviously, if the person is in a situation where they don't have any kids, they are, not really having to pay for too much, it may be more beneficial because then they're getting all the funds in, one way. But can you talk a little bit about that? Like what was supposed to be the intention of you work harder, you'll go farther than what it actually is?
I think that comes from I don't want to say a lack of education. I think, the smarter way to think about it would be work smarter and not harder. And for me, that's kind of the route that I'm not to downplay hard work. I think hard work is important. You should utilize that in whatever you do. But for those people who are looking to work 2 to 3 jobs, who feels like that's a necessity to provide for their families, there's likely ways that they could modify what they're doing to be more efficient, right? Like if you need to work to again, it's going to be different for every single person. No situation is going to be exactly the same. It's not something that's just like a law across the board. But let's just take a scenario of someone working 2 to 3 jobs. Well, are they living as frugally as they could be, right? Like, do they have a big house, a nice apartment that they're paying a ton of money for that's causing them to have to work 2 to 3 jobs? Do they have a very expensive car that they probably can't afford, but they yet are deciding to keep? There's certain things that you could probably modify about that person's lifestyle. Maybe they have a big family to support, right? Maybe that's the situation. And, if that is the case, then of course you got to make some changes. But again, why not live frugally, right? Get a cheaper car, get something that you don't have to have a car note on. Get an apartment that's safe to live in a safe area, but it's not costing you $1,500 a month. Just ways to decrease those monthly expenses so that they can have more money, for their emergency fund to support their family. Just knocking out the necessities. You mentioned this whole idea of like wants and needs, and then like kind of that greed that comes into play at some moments. Oftentimes I feel like we all fall into feeling greedy at some points and really focusing on the wants opposed to the needs, and letting that rule our pockets. And it takes discipline. It takes discipline. People got to be disciplined. You got to understand what your financial situation is, and make smart decisions based on that. Again, there's no answer that's going to be universal across for everyone, but there's certainly ways that people can avoid working 2 to 3 jobs and still have a nice life, have a comfortable life, be able to spend time with their family, because that's what you're sacrificing. At the end of the day, you're working 2 to 3 jobs. You're likely working more than 40 hours a week, unless they're just a bunch of part-time jobs. But you're likely working more than 40 hours a week, which in essence is less time away from your family, your friends, the people that mean the most to you. Less time to sleep for you. Like that eats away at your health. That eats away at your relationships. There's a big ripple effect associated with that.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously what I'm hearing is pretty much like don't live above your means, and if you do, understand what comes with like that baggage.
Yeah, yeah.
That
I mean, if that's a decision you make, exactly understand what comes along with that. Um, I'm a proponent of living frugally, living as frugal as possible, and putting yourself in a position to where you can have more of those wants down the line once you have all the needs knocked out, once you're in a comfortable position, once you're financially free, then you can go and splurge on yourself. But as a young person right now, I understand that my money is limited to a degree. I'm not making as much money as I'd like to, or as I intend to down the line. And so I'm going to live as frugally as I can now to continue putting myself in that position that I want to be down the line.
All right. So, guys, this is going to be a 3-part series. Again, I just wanted to bring Ronnie on, let you guys hear a little bit of his knowledge because he does drop a lot of wisdom bombs. And so, with that being said, it's your boy Z. This is Ronnie T, and we are out.